Serena Marlowe collapsed on frozen concrete outside her husband's mansion gates at 8 months pregnant, her phone screen dark, her calls unanswered. Inside, Damien Voss wrapped himself around another woman while his wife's heartbeat slowed in the December cold. By the time a stranger found her unconscious body and dialed his number, their baby's life hung by a thread. This is the story of a marriage that died in the snow and a man who had to lose everything before he understood what he'd thrown away. If this grabs you, stay until the end, hit that like button, and drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. The wind off Lake Michigan had teeth that night. Serena pressed her back against the iron gate, trying to draw warmth from metal that had none to give. Her coat, the only winter coat that still fit over her swollen belly, did almost nothing against the kind of cold that crawled inside your bones and made a home there. She'd been standing outside Damien's estate for 43 minutes. She knew because she had checked her phone 11 times, watching the battery percentage drop alongside her body temperature. 8:47 p.m. No response. 8:51 p.m. Nothing. 8:55 p.m. Read receipt, but silence. The mansion rose behind the gates like something out of a different century, all dark stone and tall windows that glowed amber in the rooms where people who weren't her lived their lives. She could see shadows moving on the second floor. One shadow she recognized by the breadth of his shoulders, the particular way he stood with his weight shifted slightly left. Damien had broken his hip in a car accident when he was 19, and even after surgery, even after physical therapy, he still favored his right side when he thought no one was watching. Serena had spent 3 years watching everything about him. She pressed the call button again, listened to it ring. 1, 2, 3, 4. You've reached Damien Voss. Leave a message. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. It's me again. I'm still outside. I know you said you'd send someone, but it's getting really cold and I'm... She stopped, pressed her free hand against her stomach where the baby had gone still, too still. Please, just let me in. She hung up, stared at the phone, willed it to light up with his name. The dizziness hit in waves now, each one lasting a little longer than the last. She'd skipped lunch because the smell of food had turned her stomach, and breakfast had been half a protein bar she'd found in her purse. The baby needed more than that. The baby needed her to eat, to rest, to stop standing in sub-zero wind waiting for a man who couldn't be bothered to walk down his own driveway. But she'd promised herself she wouldn't leave. Not until he came. Damien had been strange lately, distant in ways that went beyond the normal space married people sometimes needed. He'd stopped touching her sometime around month 6, right when her body had really started to change, stopped reaching for her in bed, stopped kissing her goodbye in the mornings. When she'd asked him about it, he'd said he was stressed about work, about the new acquisition, about a dozen things that probably mattered but didn't explain why he looked at her sometimes like she was a stranger who'd wandered into his house. 2 weeks ago, she'd found a woman's earring in his car. Small, diamond, expensive in a way Serena's jewelry had never been. When she'd asked him about it, Damien had laughed, actually laughed, and said it probably belonged to Caroline from the legal team, that he'd given her a ride home after a client dinner. Serena had wanted to believe him, had chosen to believe him because the alternative was too much to carry while already carrying another human being inside her body. But tonight, when she'd called to say her car had broken down 6 blocks from the estate and she needed him to come get her, he'd said he'd send someone. Not, I'll be right there. Not, stay where you are, I'm coming. Just someone. Like she was a delivery that needed collecting. She'd walked anyway. 6 blocks in shoes that pinched her swollen feet, one hand on her belly, the other clutching her phone. The Uber she'd tried to call had canceled twice. Something about the neighborhood, the gates, the fact that the GPS couldn't figure out exactly where to go. So she'd walked, and when she'd reached the estate, the gates had been locked. They were never locked. Serena had her own code, one Damien had given her the day they'd gotten married. She'd punched it in 3 times, fingers numb, breath coming in visible clouds. The keypad had blinked red each time. Access denied. He'd changed the code and hadn't told her. That was when the first real thread of fear had worked its way into her chest. She dialed again. This time, it went straight to voicemail. He'd sent her to voicemail. Damien? Her voice cracked on his name. I don't know what I did. I don't know why you're... She stopped, breathed, started again. I'm 8 months pregnant with your child. I'm standing outside in the cold because my car died and you won't answer and the gate code doesn't work and I just... The sob came up fast and hard, choking off the rest of her words. She ended the call before it could fully break free. The baby shifted then, a rolling movement that felt almost like a question. Are we okay? We're fine, Serena whispered. Her hand moved in slow circles over her stomach. Daddy's just busy. He'll come. He promised he'd always come. But another 10 minutes passed, and the only thing that came was more wind. A car pulled up to the gate from the inside. Sleek, black, something European that cost more than most people's houses. For half a second, Serena's heart lifted. But then the driver's side door opened, and the woman who stepped out was blonde, tall, wearing a dress that cost what Serena used to make in a month before she'd married Damien, and he'd convinced her she didn't need to work anymore. Caroline. From legal. The woman walked to the gate keypad, punched in a code, a different code, one that worked, and the iron bars began to swing open. She didn't look at Serena, didn't acknowledge her at all, even though they were less than 10 feet apart and Serena's presence was impossible to miss. Excuse me, Serena called out. Her voice sounded thin against the wind. Excuse me, I'm Damien's wife. I need to... Caroline slid back into her car without a word. The gate began closing immediately, automatic sensors pulling it shut before Serena could step through. She tried anyway, stumbling forward, but her legs had gone numb from standing too long and she moved too slow. The gate clanged shut, locked again. And through the narrowing gap, Serena watched Caroline's car glide up the driveway toward the house, where every light was on, where her husband was, where warmth and safety were, where she was supposed to be. The woman who'd been in Damien's car was driving back to him, and Serena was still on the outside. That was when her knees gave out. Not all at once. There was a moment where she felt them going soft, felt her body listing sideways, felt the concrete rising up to meet her. She tried to catch herself, one hand shooting out, but the world had gone tilted and wrong, and the last thing she registered before the darkness came was the cold shocking into her palms, and the baby, her little one, who was supposed to be safe. Gone. Everything gone. Damien Voss was halfway through his second scotch when his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, unknown number, and almost declined it. He'd already ignored 4 calls from Serena in the past hour, and he wasn't in the mood to hear her voice get small and hurt the way it had been getting lately. Like he was doing something wrong by needing space. Like wanting time away from the constant weight of her need was some kind of crime. Caroline was curled against his side on the leather couch in his study, her head on his shoulder, her perfume something expensive and uncomplicated. She didn't ask him for things, didn't need him to fix her or save her or prove anything. She just existed beside him. Easy, simple. Everything Serena had stopped being the moment she'd gotten pregnant. Aren't you going to answer that? Caroline murmured against his neck. Damien let it ring once more, then swiped to accept. Voss. Mr. Voss? Male voice. Unfamiliar. Urgent in a way that made Damien's spine straighten. This is Ben Kowalski. I'm calling from outside your property. I found a woman collapsed by your gate. She's unconscious, and she's pregnant. And, sir, I already called 911, but her phone was open to your contact, and I thought... The scotch glass hit the floor. Damien was moving before he'd fully processed the words, already shoving past Caroline, already grabbing his coat from the back of the door. His mind had gone to static, white noise, a high-pitched ringing that drowned out everything except 3 words. Collapsed, pregnant, unconscious. Where? He barked into the phone. Where exactly? The front gate, east side. The ambulance is 3 minutes out, they said, but she's... Jesus, she's really cold, man, and I can't wake her up. Damien was running. Down the hall, through the foyer, out the front door into cold that bit through his shirt because he'd forgotten to put his coat on. Had just grabbed it. His breath came in ragged clouds. The driveway stretched out in front of him, too long, every step not fast enough. She called me. She called me 4 times and I sent her to voicemail. The gate came into view. And there, on the ground just outside it, was a shape that didn't belong. Small, dark, crumpled like something discarded. No. The word ripped out of him. No, no, no. A man Damien didn't know was kneeling beside her, his coat draped over her body. He looked up when Damien reached the gate, and the expression on his face made Damien's stomach drop. I tried to keep her warm, the stranger said. I didn't want to move her in case, but she's so cold. Damien's hands were shaking so hard he could barely punch in the gate code. He got it wrong twice before muscle memory kicked in and the mechanism clicked. The gate swung open. He dropped to his knees beside Serena. Her face was white, lips pale, eyes closed. She looked like something carved from ice. Serena. His hands hovered over her, afraid to touch, afraid not to. Baby, wake up. Come on, wake up. Nothing. He pressed his fingers to her throat, searching for a pulse. Found it. Faint. Too slow. But there. Relief and terror hit him in the same breath. The ambulance is close, the stranger said. I can hear it. Damien barely heard him. He was staring at Serena's stomach, at the swell of it beneath the stranger's coat, and something was breaking open inside his chest. This was his wife, his pregnant wife, and she'd been out here in the cold, alone, while he'd been inside with another woman. I'm sorry. He didn't know he was going to say it until the words were already out. God, Serena, I'm so sorry. Her eyelids fluttered. For a second, he thought she might open them. But then she went still again, and the only movement was the slight rise and fall of her chest. Sirens split the air. Red and white lights washed over them. The ambulance skidded to a stop, and paramedics were pouring out, pushing Damien aside, asking questions he didn't know how to answer. How long has she been unconscious? I don't know. Is she injured anywhere? I don't know. When did she last eat? He stopped, stared at them. I don't know. He didn't know anything. Didn't know what his wife had eaten or when she'd last slept or why she'd been outside his gate in the first place. He'd stopped asking those questions weeks ago, maybe months. Had stopped seeing her as anything other than an obligation that had become too heavy to carry. They were lifting her onto a gurney now, moving fast, strapping her down. One of the paramedics, young, female, efficient, pressed a stethoscope to Serena's belly and went very still. What? Damien's voice came out sharp. What is it? The paramedic didn't answer right away. She moved the stethoscope, listened again, then looked up at her partner. Fetal heartbeat is present, but irregular. We need to move. Wait, irregular? What does that... But they were already loading Serena into the ambulance, and Damien was trying to climb in after her, and someone was telling him he couldn't ride along, and he was shouting that she was his wife, and, You can follow in your car, sir, the paramedic said, not unkind, but firm. We need room to work. The doors slammed shut, the ambulance pulled away, and Damien stood in the middle of his driveway, watching the lights disappear, his heart hammering so hard he thought it might crack his ribs. The stranger was still there. Ben something. He'd picked up his coat from the ground and was shaking it out, not looking at Damien. Thank you, Damien managed, for calling, for staying with her. Ben nodded slowly, then quiet. She was out here a long time, man. I only found her because my dog pulled toward the gate. If he hadn't... He trailed off. Didn't need to finish. If he hadn't, Serena might have died on the concrete. Might have frozen to death 10 feet from her own home while Damien drank scotch and pretended she didn't exist. I have to go, Damien said. His voice sounded hollow. I have to. The hospital. He turned and ran back toward the house, back past the front door where Caroline was standing now, wrapped in her coat, looking confused and annoyed. Back to his car. He started the engine with shaking hands and gunned it down the driveway, barely slowing for the gate. The drive to the hospital was 15 minutes. He made it in 8. The emergency room was too bright, too loud, too full of people whose problems weren't his wife dying because he'd abandoned her. Damien shoved through the doors and went straight to the desk. Serena Voss, they just brought her in. Where is she? The nurse didn't even look up. Are you family? I'm her husband. That got her attention. She glanced at him, and something in her expression shifted, cooled. She's being examined now. Someone will update you when there's news. I want to see her. Not possible right now. You don't understand. I need to... Sir. The nurse's voice went flat. Your wife is 8 months pregnant and came in unconscious with signs of severe hypothermia and exhaustion. The doctors are trying to stabilize her and assess the baby. You standing in an exam room isn't going to help that process. Sit down. Wait. Someone will come get you. She turned back to her computer, dismissing him. Damien wanted to argue. Wanted to pull rank, throw money at the problem, demand answers he didn't deserve. But the fight went out of him all at once, and he just stood there, useless. Eventually, he moved to the waiting area, sat in a plastic chair that was bolted to the floor, dropped his head into his hands. His phone buzzed. Caroline. Where did you go? He stared at the message. Didn't respond. Turned the phone face down on his knee. Time moved wrong in hospitals. Could have been 10 minutes or 2 hours when a doctor finally approached. Middle-aged woman, gray hair pulled back, wearing scrubs that had seen better days. Mr. Voss? He was on his feet before she finished his name. How is she? Is the baby? The doctor gestured for him to sit. He didn't want to, but he did, and she sat beside him, which somehow made it worse. Your wife is stable, she said. We've got her on IV fluids and warming protocols. Her core temperature was dangerously low when she came in, 87 degrees. Another hour outside and we'd be having a very different conversation. Damien's throat closed up. The baby's heartbeat has stabilized for now, but it was erratic when she arrived. We're monitoring closely. Fetal stress at this stage can lead to complications, so we're not out of the woods yet. Can I see her? In a moment. Mr. Voss, I need to ask, how long was your wife outside? I don't know. The doctor's gaze sharpened. You don't know? She called me, said her car broke down. I told her I'd send someone to get her, but He stopped. Couldn't finish. Couldn't say out loud that he'd ignored her after that he'd let her calls go to voicemail while he sat with another woman. She didn't eat today, the doctor said. It wasn't a question. Or yesterday, based on her blood work, her glucose levels are critically low. Combined with the cold exposure and the physical stress. She paused. Mr. Voss, your wife's body was shutting down. Do you understand that? She wasn't just cold and tired. She was dying. The word hit him like a physical blow. I didn't. His voice cracked. I didn't know. When was the last time you checked on her, talked to her, made sure she was okay? He couldn't answer. Had no answer that wouldn't damn him. The doctor stood. She's awake now. Room 12, down that hall. But Mr. Voss? She waited until he looked at her. Whatever happened between you two, fix it. Because that woman fought like hell to keep your baby alive tonight, and she shouldn't have had to do it alone. She walked away. Damien sat frozen for another long moment. Then he made himself stand, made himself walk down the hall, made himself stop outside room 12 and push open the door. Serena was in the bed by the window, small, pale, hooked up to machines that beeped and hummed. An IV ran into her arm. A fetal monitor was strapped around her belly. She turned her head when he walked in, and the look in her eyes, it wasn't anger, it wasn't even hurt. It was nothing, blank, empty, like she'd already decided he wasn't worth the emotion. Serena, he moved toward the bed, stopped when she flinched. God, I'm so sorry. She didn't respond, just kept looking at him with those flat, dead eyes. Your car, he tried. You said it broke down. I should have come myself. I don't know why I didn't. I just thought, you thought someone else could handle it, Serena said. Her voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. Someone else could deal with me. That's not... I called you 4 times, Damien. Each word was its own sentence. I told you I was cold. I told you the gate code wasn't working, and you sent me to voicemail. He had no defense, no excuse that wouldn't sound exactly as pathetic as it was. Why didn't you come? She asked. And there it was, the crack in the emptiness, the hurt bleeding through. I was standing outside our home, pregnant with our child, and you couldn't walk down the driveway. Why? I don't know. You do know. Her hand moved to her stomach, protective. You just don't want to say it. Damien's mouth opened, closed. He felt like he was standing on the edge of something with no way back. There's someone else, Serena said quietly. Isn't there? The machines beeped. The heater hummed. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughed. Answer me. Yes. The word came out strangled. Yes, it's not what you think. It's not serious. It's just what? Serena's voice rose, sharp and breaking. Just sex? Just company? Just easier than being with your pregnant wife? Serena? Was she there tonight? Serena's eyes were filling now, tears spilling over. When I was calling you, begging you to let me in, was she with you? He couldn't lie. Not anymore. Not after this. Yes. The sound Serena made wasn't quite a sob, wasn't quite a scream. It was something worse, something that came from a place too deep for words. She turned her face away from him, her whole body curling inward like she could fold herself small enough to disappear. Get out. Serena, please, get out. She was shaking now, her hands pressed to her stomach. I can't look at you right now. Just go. I'm not leaving you here alone. She laughed then, bitter and broken. You already did. You've been leaving me alone for months. This is just the first time it almost killed me. The machine started beeping faster. A nurse pushed into the room, took one look at Serena's face, then at Damien. You need to step out, the nurse said. Not a suggestion. I'm her husband. I don't care if you're the president. Out. Now. Damien looked at Serena one more time. She wouldn't look back. Just kept her face turned to the wall, her shoulders shaking, her hands never leaving the place where their baby grew. He left. The door closed behind him, and Damien stood in the hallway, listening to his wife cry through the wall, and understood, finally, too late, when it might not matter anymore, exactly what he'd done. He'd destroyed her, and himself. And maybe, if the baby didn't make it through this, their child too. The night stretched on. Damien didn't leave the hospital. Couldn't. He sat in the hallway outside Serena's room and waited for what? Forgiveness? Permission to see her again? A sign that she and the baby would survive? All of it. None of it. Around 3 a.m., the door opened. The same nurse from before stepped out, saw him still sitting there, and sighed. She's sleeping, the nurse said. Baby's heartbeat is holding steady. We're cautiously optimistic. Can I? No. She asked us to keep you out. The nurse paused. Look, I don't know what you did, and honestly, I don't want to, but that woman in there, she's been through hell tonight. Don't add to it. I know. I'm trying to. I want to make it right. Then give her space. Let her breathe. When she's ready to talk to you, she'll say so. The nurse turned to leave, then stopped. And for what it's worth, you should probably figure out what you actually want before she asks you again. Because next time, she's not going to accept "I don't know" as an answer. She disappeared back into the room. Damien leaned his head against the wall, closed his eyes. His phone buzzed. Caroline again. Are you coming back? He looked at the message for a long time. Then he typed, No, don't contact me again. Sent it. Blocked her number. It wasn't enough. Wouldn't be enough. But it was a start. When dawn broke through the windows, Damien was still there, sitting in that hallway, keeping watch over a door that wouldn't open for him. Waiting. Hoping. Praying to a universe that didn't owe him anything, that it wasn't too late. Serena woke to white ceiling tiles and the rhythmic beep of machines that reminded her she was still alive, which felt less like a gift than a punishment. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic, and something else underneath. Something metallic and sad that she associated with places where people came to face things they'd been running from. Her hand went immediately to her stomach. The baby moved under her palm, a slow roll that felt almost like reassurance. You're still here, she whispered. We're still here. The door opened. A nurse, different from the night before, younger, with kind eyes that hadn't yet learned to hide pity, stepped in with a tablet and a too bright smile. Good morning, Mrs. Voss. How are we feeling? Serena almost laughed. We. Like they were in this together. Like this woman had any idea what it felt like to wake up knowing your husband had left you to freeze while he buried himself in someone else. Fine, Serena said. Her throat was raw from crying, from the breathing tube they'd put down it at some point during the night when her body temperature had dropped too low and things had gotten dangerous in ways no one had bothered to explain to her yet. The nurse didn't buy it, but she didn't push either. Just checked the monitors, made notes on her tablet, adjusted the IV drip. The doctor will be in around 9 to talk about next steps. Your vitals are looking much better. Baby's heartbeat has been stable all night. She paused. Your husband is still in the hallway. He's been there since you were admitted. Serena's jaw tightened. Tell him to go home. I've told him that 4 times. He won't leave. Then tell security to remove him. The nurse's expression shifted, still kind, but firmer now. Mrs. Voss, I can't force you to see him, but he looks like he hasn't slept, hasn't eaten, and is about 2 hours away from a complete breakdown. Whatever happened between you two, maybe give him 5 minutes. Let him see you're okay. Then we can kick him out if that's what you want. Serena closed her eyes. She didn't want to see Damien, didn't want to hear his apologies or his excuses or whatever carefully constructed explanation he'd spent the night building. She wanted him to disappear, to never have existed, to rewind time back to before she'd loved him, before she'd trusted him, before she'd made a child with a man who couldn't be bothered to answer his phone when she was dying. But the baby kicked again, harder this time, and Serena's hand spread across the movement, and she thought about all the conversations they'd need to have eventually. All the logistics of sharing a child with someone you couldn't stand to look at. 5 minutes, she said quietly. Then he leaves. The nurse nodded and stepped out. Serena counted heartbeats, 47 of them, before the door opened again and Damien walked in looking like something dragged out of a lake. His shirt was wrinkled, half untucked. His hair stuck up in the back where he'd been running his hands through it. There were shadows under his eyes so dark they looked like bruises, and when he tried to smile, it came out crooked and wrong. Hi, he said. Serena didn't respond, just watched him with the same flat expression she'd given him the night before, the one that made it clear she had nothing left to give him, not anger, not hurt, not anything. Damien took 2 steps into the room and stopped, like he'd hit an invisible wall. The nurse said you're doing better, that the baby's okay. For now. That's good. That's really good. He shifted his weight, favoring his right side the way he always did when he was nervous. Serena, I know you don't want to hear this, but I need to say it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what I did, for what I've been doing, for all of it. Okay. The word landed like a stone. No emotion behind it, just acknowledgement that he'd spoken. Damien's face crumpled. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, Damien? That I forgive you? That we can move past this and pretend it didn't happen? Serena's voice stayed flat, controlled. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her break again. You left me outside in the cold. You ignored my calls while I was collapsing on the street. I almost died. Our baby almost died. And you were inside with another woman. I know. Do you? Now the anger was creeping in, hot and sharp. Do you actually understand what you did? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you just feel guilty. And guilt isn't the same as understanding. Damien moved closer to the bed. Serena's hand shot up, palm out. Don't come any closer. He stopped, swallowed hard. What do you want me to do? Tell me what to do and I'll do it. I want you to leave. Serena, you asked what I want. That's what I want. I want you to walk out of this room and give me space to figure out what the hell I'm supposed to do now. I can't just leave you here alone, Serena laughed, sharp and bitter. You've been leaving me alone for months. This is just the first time you're physically absent while doing it. The words hit him like a slap. She could see it in the way his whole body flinched, in the way his hands came up like he wanted to defend himself, but couldn't find the argument. That's not fair, he said quietly. Fair? Serena's voice rose and the monitor started beeping faster. You want to talk to me about fair? I gave up my job because you said we didn't need the money. I gave up my apartment because you said we should live together. I gave up my friends because they didn't fit into your world. And then I got pregnant, and you looked at me like I'd betrayed you somehow, like my body changing was a personal insult. That's not... I never... When was the last time you touched me, Damien? Held my hand? Kissed me goodnight? When was the last time you looked at me and saw your wife instead of an inconvenience? He couldn't answer. They both knew it. I stood outside your house for almost an hour last night, Serena continued. Her voice was shaking now, but she pushed through it. I watched that woman drive through the gate, watched her go into our home like she belonged there, and I couldn't get in. Do you understand how that felt? To be locked out of my own life? I changed the code because... Damien stopped himself. Because what? His jaw worked. Because I didn't want you showing up unannounced. The truth of it sucked all the air out of the room. Serena stared at him. Get out. Serena, please. Get out. The shout tore something in her throat. The monitors were screaming now, alarms going off. Get out, get out, get out. The door burst open. Two nurses rushed in, one going straight to Serena, the other physically steering Damien toward the exit. Sir, you need to leave. Now. I'm not... Now. They shoved him into the hallway and slammed the door. Through the window, Serena could see him standing there, hands pressed against the glass, mouth moving in words she couldn't hear and didn't want to. The nurse, the kind one from before, was holding Serena's hand, talking in a low, soothing voice about breathing, about the baby, about staying calm. But Serena couldn't be calm, couldn't breathe through the rage and the grief and the horrible, crushing weight of understanding that the man she'd married, the man she'd built her entire life around, had deliberately locked her out because he wanted to pretend she didn't exist. I can't do this, she gasped between sobs. I can't be married to him anymore. The nurse squeezed her hand. Right now, you don't have to decide anything. Right now, you just need to breathe and let us take care of you. It took 20 minutes for Serena's heart rate to stabilize, another 10 for the crying to stop. By the time the doctor arrived, Serena was empty again, wrung out, barely there. Dr. Martinez, the same woman from the night before, pulled up a chair beside the bed and sat like she had all the time in the world. Your husband's gone, she said without preamble. We had security escort him to the parking lot. He wanted me to tell you he's sorry and that he'll be back later. Don't let him in. I can't legally prevent him from visiting, but I can make sure he only comes when you're ready. Dr. Martinez leaned forward. Mrs. Voss, I need to be straight with you. The stress you're under is dangerous, for you and for the baby. Your blood pressure is too high, your glucose is still low, and every time you get upset, the baby's heart rate spikes. So what am I supposed to do, just pretend everything's fine? No, but you need to find a way to manage this that doesn't involve screaming matches, which means boundaries, clear ones. The doctor paused. Have you thought about what happens after you leave here? Where you're going to go? Serena hadn't thought past the next 5 minutes. I don't know. Do you have family, friends who can help? My parents are dead, my friends... She trailed off. The friends she'd had before Damien had slowly faded away. Their invitations declined so many times they'd stopped asking. The friends she'd made through Damien were his friends first, loyal to him in ways that would never extend to her. No, I don't have anyone. Dr. Martinez was quiet for a moment, then... There are resources, shelters, support groups, legal advocates. If you need help leaving, there are people who specialize in this. I'm not being abused. Aren't you? The question sat between them like something alive. He never hit me, Serena said. There are a lot of ways to hurt someone without raising a hand. Dr. Martinez stood. I'm going to have a social worker come talk to you. You don't have to make any decisions today, but you should know what your options are. She left. Serena lay in the too-white room with the two loud machines and let herself think about the things she'd been avoiding since the moment she'd woken up. She couldn't go back to that house. Couldn't stand in rooms where Damien had kissed another woman. Couldn't sleep in a bed where he'd probably brought her. Couldn't raise her baby in a place that had locked her out when she needed it most. But she also had nowhere else to go. No money of her own. Everything was in joint accounts Damien controlled. No job to return to. No safety net she'd built without him. She'd made herself dependent. Or he'd made her dependent. Or they'd built it together, brick by brick, until she was so tangled up in his life that extracting herself felt impossible. The baby kicked, hard enough to make her wince. I know, Serena whispered. I know we have to figure this out. Her phone was on the side table, retrieved from her coat pocket, charged by a nurse who'd taken pity on her. Serena picked it up and scrolled through her contacts. Most of them were Damien's people. His lawyer, his accountant, his business partners. A few were vendors from the wedding they'd planned together, the caterer and the florist who probably didn't remember her. She found one name that wasn't his, Rachel Kim. They'd worked together 5 years ago at a marketing firm before Serena had left to marry Damien. They'd been close once. Had drinks after work, complained about bad dates, talked about the future like it was something they could control. Serena hadn't called her in over a year. She pressed dial before she could talk herself out of it. 3 rings. Then, hello? Rachel? It's Serena. Serena Marlowe. Well, Voss now, but holy shit, Serena. Where have you been? I tried calling you like 6 times last year and you never... Rachel stopped. Wait, are you okay? You sound weird. I'm in the hospital. What? Why? Are you hurt? I'm pregnant, and Serena's voice cracked. I need help. There was a pause. Then Rachel's voice came back, sharper, more focused. What hospital? Northwestern Memorial. I'm 20 minutes away. Don't move. Rachel, you don't have to... Shut up. I'm already grabbing my keys. The line went dead. Serena set the phone down and cried again, but this time it felt different. Less like drowning, more like relief. Rachel showed up in 18 minutes, which meant she'd driven too fast and probably run at least one red light. She burst into the room like a small hurricane, dark hair flying, eyes scanning Serena from head to toe. Jesus Christ, Rachel breathed. You look like hell. Thanks. No, I mean... Rachel pulled up the chair Dr. Martinez had vacated and sat, reaching for Serena's hand. What happened? And don't give me the hospital version. Give me the truth. So Serena did. All of it. The slow erosion of her marriage, the isolation, the way Damien had pulled away, the other woman standing outside in the cold, waking up here with machines beeping, and a baby who'd almost died because Serena had believed her husband would keep her safe. Rachel listened without interrupting. When Serena finished, Rachel's expression had gone hard. I'm going to kill him, she said flatly. I'm going to walk into his stupid mansion and push him down the stairs. Despite everything, Serena almost smiled. Don't. It's not worth it. He left you outside to freeze, Serena, while you were pregnant. That's not didn't answer the phone fast enough territory. That's lock him up and throw away the key territory. I know. So what are you going to do? I don't know. I can't go back there, but I don't have anywhere else to go. Rachel squeezed her hand. You're coming to my place. Rachel, I can't ask you to... You're not asking, I'm telling. You're staying with me until you figure out your next move. My apartment's small, but the couch pulls out and I have a decent internet connection for lawyer consultations, which you're going to need. I don't even know if I want to divorce him. The words felt strange in her mouth. I just want to not be around him right now. That's fine. You don't have to decide anything permanent today. But you need distance, and you need someone in your corner who isn't going to make excuses for him. The relief that washed over Serena was so strong it made her dizzy. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. My couch is lumpy as hell, and my neighbor plays the saxophone at 6 a.m. Rachel stood. When are they discharging you? I don't know. A few days, maybe. They want to monitor the baby. Okay. I'll come back tomorrow with some clothes and stuff. Do you need me to get anything from your place? Serena thought about the mansion, about her clothes in the closet, her books on the shelf, all the small pieces of herself scattered through rooms that had never really felt like hers. No, she said. I don't want anything from there. Rachel nodded like she understood. Call me if you need anything. And Serena, if that bastard shows up here again, you tell the nurses to throw him out. You don't owe him anything. After Rachel left, Serena felt lighter. Not happy. She was too hollowed out for happy, but less trapped. Like maybe there was a path forward that didn't involve going back to Damien and pretending the last 24 hours hadn't happened. The social worker came an hour later. A woman in her 50s with gray-streaked hair and an expression that suggested she'd heard every terrible story there was and had stopped being surprised by human cruelty a long time ago. Her name was Linda, and she sat in the same chair everyone else had used and asked questions in a voice that managed to be both gentle and entirely no-nonsense. Has he ever physically hurt you? No. Threatened to? No. Controlled your access to money? Serena hesitated. Everything's in joint accounts, but he's the one who manages them. Linda made a note. Do you have access to those accounts? Can you withdraw money if you need to? I think so. I've never tried. Have you tried recently? No. I'd suggest you check. Today, if possible. Men who isolate their partners financially often start restricting access when they sense the relationship is ending. The words sent a chill through Serena. She pulled out her phone and opened her banking app, logged into the joint account they used for household expenses. The balance showed $47,000, which was normal. But when she tried to transfer $1,000 to her old personal account, the one she'd kept from before the marriage but rarely used, the transaction was declined. She tried again. Declined. "It's not working," Serena said. Her voice came out thin. Linda's expression didn't change. "Did he ever ask you to sign papers giving him power of attorney over your finances?" Maybe. When we got married, there were a lot of documents. His lawyer said it was standard stuff, protections for both of us in case something happened. Do you have copies of those documents? No. Damien kept them. He said he had a safe at his office for important papers. Linda was writing faster now. "Mrs. Voss, I'm going to give you the number for a lawyer who specializes in these situations. You need to talk to her as soon as possible. If your husband has legal control over your finances and you're planning to leave him, you need to act quickly." "I don't have money to pay a lawyer. She does pro bono work for cases like yours. Just call her, explain what's happening, see what she says." Linda tore a page from her notebook and handed it over. "In the meantime, don't sign anything else. Don't agree to anything without consulting her first. And don't tell your husband you're planning to leave until you have a safe place to go and a plan in place." "I'm not planning to leave. I need space." Linda's look was kind, but sad. "Space is how it starts, and based on what you've told me, your husband is going to fight you on that. Be ready." After Linda left, Serena lay in the hospital bed and stared at the ceiling and tried to understand how her life had become something that required lawyers and safety plans and warnings about the man she'd promised to love forever. Her phone buzzed. Text from Damien. "I know you don't want to hear from me, but I need you to know I ended things with Caroline. Permanently. I blocked her number. She's gone." Serena stared at the message, waited for relief, gratitude, anything, felt nothing. Another text. "I'm going to fix this. I don't know how yet, but I will. You and the baby are everything to me." She set the phone down without responding. The baby kicked, and Serena's hand moved automatically to the spot, feeling the shape of a foot or an elbow pressing against her palm. "Your dad's an idiot," she whispered. "But I guess you're stuck with him anyway." The door opened again. Serena expected another nurse, another doctor, another person with questions she didn't want to answer. Instead, it was the young nurse from the morning, the one who'd convinced her to let Damien in for 5 minutes. "Sorry to bother you," the nurse said, "but there's someone downstairs asking about you. Says she's your mother-in-law." Serena's stomach dropped. "Helen?" "She didn't give a name, just said she's family and she needs to see you." Of course, Damien had called his mother. Of course, he'd gone crying to Helen, who'd never liked Serena, who'd made it clear from day one that her son had married beneath him, that Serena would never be good enough for the Voss family legacy. "Tell her I'm sleeping," Serena said. "Tell her I can't have visitors." "I can do that. But she's pretty insistent. Says she'll wait." "Let her wait." The nurse nodded and left. Serena closed her eyes and tried to breathe through the tightness in her chest. Helen Voss was a force of nature. Old money, old power, old expectations that she wielded like weapons. She'd tried to talk Damien out of the wedding, had suggested a prenup so punitive Serena's signature had felt like signing away her soul, had spent the past 3 years subtly undermining every decision Serena made. And now she was here, probably to tell Serena that whatever had happened was her fault, that she'd driven Damien to infidelity by gaining weight or being emotional or failing to be the perfect accessory wife. Serena's phone buzzed again. This time it was a call, not a text. "Helen." She let it go to voicemail. 10 seconds later, another call. Serena turned the phone off entirely. The machines beeped. The heater hummed. Outside the window, the sky was gray and heavy with the promise of more snow. And Serena lay there, 8 months pregnant, hooked up to machines, locked in a hospital room, and realized that even here, even now, the Voss family wasn't going to let her go without a fight. Helen Voss got past security 20 minutes later by claiming she was there to deliver important medical documents that Serena's insurance required. The nurse who'd been running interference appeared in the doorway looking apologetic and defeated. "I'm sorry," she said. She's very persuasive. Helen swept into the room before Serena could protest. All cashmere and pearls, and the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. She was 63 but looked 50, maintained through expensive procedures and a personal trainer who came to her house 6 days a week. Her hair was silver blonde, cut in a sharp bob that framed a face that had probably been kind once, before decades of social warfare had turned it into something else. Serena. Helen's voice was cool, controlled. You look dreadful. Hello, Helen. I came as soon as Damien called. He's beside himself, you know, absolutely devastated. Serena didn't respond, just watched her mother-in-law settle into the visitor's chair like she owned it, crossing her legs at the ankle in that particular way wealthy women did, the one that suggested they'd taken deportment classes as children. He told me what happened, Helen continued, about the misunderstanding with the gate code, about you being outside in the cold. Truly unfortunate. Misunderstanding, Serena repeated. The word tasted bitter. Well, what would you call it? Damien said he changed the security protocols for safety reasons and simply forgot to inform you. An oversight, certainly, but hardly malicious. He locked me out because he didn't want me coming home while he was with another woman. Helen's expression didn't change. Damien mentioned you might be upset about Caroline, but darling, these things happen in marriages, especially when a wife becomes difficult to be around. The casual cruelty of it landed like a punch. Serena's hands curled into fists against the blanket. Difficult, she said quietly. I'm 8 months pregnant with his child. Yes, and you've been quite demanding about it, haven't you? Calling him constantly, needing reassurance, being emotional. Men aren't built for that level of intensity, Serena. They need space, lightness. Caroline provided that when you couldn't. So it's my fault he cheated. I didn't say that. Helen's tone suggested she'd said exactly that. But you must understand, marriages require work from both parties. And lately, from what Damien tells me, you've been rather, she gestured vaguely at Serena's body, consumed by the pregnancy. Understandable, of course, but men have needs that don't stop just because you're carrying a child. Serena felt something cold settle in her chest. Did you come here to blame me for my husband's affair? I came here to help you see the bigger picture. Damien made a mistake. He's acknowledged it, ended things with the other woman, and is willing to move forward. The question is whether you're going to be mature enough to do the same. Mature. Serena's voice was rising now, and she didn't try to stop it. He left me outside to freeze. I almost died. Our baby almost died. And you think the mature response is to forgive him and pretend it didn't happen? Helen's eyes narrowed. Don't be dramatic. You're fine. The baby's fine. No permanent damage done. No permanent damage? Serena pushed herself up in the bed, ignoring the pull of the IV in her arm. I have frostbite on 3 of my toes. My blood pressure is so high they're worried about preeclampsia. And every time I close my eyes, I'm back outside that gate, watching his mistress drive past me into my own house. She's not his mistress. She was a momentary distraction. That doesn't make it better. Lower your voice. You're in a hospital. Helen smoothed her skirt, a small gesture that somehow conveyed immense displeasure. Serena, I'm going to be frank with you. You come from nothing. No family, no money, no connections. Damien gave you everything. A home, security, a position in society that you never could have achieved on your own. And now you're going to throw that away because of wounded pride? The words hit like they were designed to, sharp and precise, aimed at the soft parts Serena had spent years trying to protect. I'm throwing it away because he doesn't love me, Serena said. Her voice came out quieter now, exhausted. Maybe he never did. Love, Helen laughed, short and dismissive. You're not a teenager, Serena. Love is what you feel at the beginning. What matters is partnership, stability, legacy. Damien can give you all of that. Can you honestly say you'll find better? I can say I deserve someone who won't leave me to die on the street. Again, with the dramatics. Helen stood, collecting her purse. I can see you're not ready to have a rational conversation. But let me be clear about something. If you leave Damien, if you try to take him to court, you will lose. The prenup you signed gives you almost nothing in the event of divorce. No alimony, no claim to assets acquired during the marriage. You'll walk away with whatever you brought into it, which, as I recall, was a 10-year-old Honda and about $3,000 in savings. Serena's throat went tight. I have rights. The baby. The baby will be provided for. Damien would never abandon his child. But you? Helen's smile was thin and sharp. You'll be lucky to get supervised visitation once our lawyers are done. Do you really think a court will give primary custody to an unemployed woman with no family support and a history of emotional instability? I don't have a history of... You were hospitalized for a breakdown during college, weren't you? After your parents died? Spent 3 months in treatment for depression and anxiety. Helen tilted her head. These things have a way of coming out in custody disputes, especially when the father can provide a stable home with every advantage money can buy. The room seemed to tilt. Serena had told Damien about that time in her life during one of their early dates, when she'd still believed in the safety of vulnerability. She'd never imagined he'd use it against her, that his mother would weaponize her grief. Get out, Serena whispered. I'm simply being honest with you. You don't have the resources to fight this family. The sooner you accept that and start working toward reconciliation, the better for everyone, especially that baby. Get out. Helen moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. Rachel Kim called asking about you. I took the liberty of explaining that you're in a delicate state and shouldn't be bothered with outside influences right now. She seemed to understand. You had no right. I have every right to protect my family, which, whether you like it or not, still includes you. Helen's expression softened slightly, which somehow made her words worse. I'm not the villain here, Serena. I'm trying to help you see reason before you destroy your life and your child's future. Think about what I said. She left. Serena sat in the silence that followed, her heart hammering so hard the monitors started beeping again. The nurse rushed in, checked her vitals, made soothing sounds that Serena barely heard. When she was alone again, Serena picked up her phone with shaking hands and turned it back on. 17 missed calls. 6 from Damien, 11 from Helen, 3 voicemails she didn't want to listen to. She called Rachel instead. Hey, Rachel answered. I tried calling earlier, but did Helen Voss call you? A pause. Yeah. She said you were resting and couldn't have visitors. That I should wait a few days before... Don't listen to her. She's lying. Serena's words tumbled out fast. She came here and threatened me. Said she'd take my baby if I left Damien. Said I'd lose in court because I have no money. And I was hospitalized for depression 10 years ago. And... Whoa, slow down. What the hell? Serena told her everything. Helen's visit, the threats, the prenup, all of it. By the end, Rachel was swearing steadily in a mix of English and Korean. That manipulative witch, Rachel finally said. Okay, first thing, she's bluffing about most of that. Second thing, you need to talk to that lawyer Linda recommended like yesterday. Third thing, I'm coming back to the hospital right now. You don't have to... Stop telling me I don't have to help you. I'm helping. Deal with it. Rachel's voice softened. Serena, listen to me. Helen Voss is using classic intimidation tactics. She wants you scared and isolated. Don't let her win. What if she's right? What if I can't win against them? Then we fight anyway, because the alternative is going back to a man who locked you out in the snow and a family who thinks you're disposable. Rachel paused. Do you want to go back to him? Serena closed her eyes. Tried to imagine walking back into that mansion, sleeping in that bed, pretending the last 48 hours hadn't happened. Tried to picture Damien touching her, the baby being born into a house full of lies, raising a child with a man she couldn't trust, and a family who saw her as an obstacle. No, she whispered. I don't want to go back. Then we figure out how to move forward, together. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Rachel hung up. Serena set the phone down and looked at the lawyer's number Linda had given her. It was almost 4 p.m. Probably too late to call today. But she could try. The phone rang 3 times before a woman answered. Judith Parrish's office. Hi, my name is Serena Voss. I was given your number by a social worker at Northwestern Memorial. She said Miss Parrish might be able to help me with a family law issue. One moment, please. Hold music. Serena counted her heartbeats. 37 of them. Then a new voice, older, with a slight southern accent that had been mostly trained out but lingered on certain words. This is Judith Parrish. You're at Northwestern? Yes, in the maternity ward. And the social worker who referred you was Linda Chen? I think that was her name, yes.
Linda doesn't refer people to me unless the situation is urgent. What's going on? Serena told her story for what felt like the 100th time. The affair, the locked gate, the hospital, Helen's threats. Judith listened without interrupting, occasionally asking a clarifying question, but mostly just letting Serena talk. When she finished, there was a long pause. Okay, Judith finally said. I'm going to ask you some hard questions, and I need you to answer honestly. Can you do that? Yes? Do you believe your husband would physically harm you or your child? No, he's not violent. Has he ever prevented you from leaving a room or a building, locked you in anywhere, taken your phone or your keys? Serena thought about the gate code. He changed the gate code to the house without telling me. Last night I couldn't get in. But before that? Any pattern of restricting your movement? No. Good. That makes things easier legally. Judith's voice was brisk, professional. Now, your mother-in-law mentioned a prenup. Do you have a copy? No, Damien's lawyer handled it. I signed it before the wedding. Did you have your own lawyer review it before you signed? No, Damien said it was standard, that it protected both of us. Judith made a sound that might have been a sigh. Did anyone pressure you to sign? Threaten to cancel the wedding if you didn't? Serena thought back, remembered Helen's tight smile. Damien's assurances that it was just a formality, the way everyone had made her feel silly for even asking questions. Not explicitly, but it was clear the wedding wouldn't happen if I didn't sign. That's coercion. Depending on what's in the document, we might be able to challenge its validity. Judith paused. I'm going to need to see that prenup. Can you get a copy? It's at Damien's office in a safe. We'll subpoena it if we have to. In the meantime, I want you to start documenting everything. Every text, every call, every conversation. Write down what Helen said to you today, word for word if you can remember. Screenshot your bank accounts, especially if you notice any changes in access. I already can't transfer money out of our joint account. When did that start? I don't know. I just tried it today for the first time. Try again, right now, while I'm on the phone. Tell me what happens. Serena opened her banking app with one hand, keeping the phone pressed to her ear with the other. She pulled up the joint account and attempted to transfer $500 to her personal account. Transaction declined. It won't let me, Serena said. What's the error message? It just says transaction declined. No other explanation. That's a freeze. Your husband probably called the bank and restricted your access. It's not legal, but it'll take a court order to fix it. Oh, Judith's voice hardened. How much money do you have in accounts that are solely in your name? Serena checked her old personal account. $417. Credit cards? 1. But it's connected to the joint account. If he's frozen that, check it. Serena tried to log into the credit card account. The password she'd been using for 2 years didn't work. She tried twice more. Locked out. He changed the password, Serena said. Her voice sounded hollow to her own ears. Okay. Judith's tone was calm, steady, the kind of calm that came from having seen this before. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to file an emergency motion first thing Monday morning for temporary support and access to marital funds. I'm also going to request a restraining order preventing your husband from further restricting your access to money. In the meantime, you have $400. Make it last through the weekend. I don't have anywhere to go when they discharge me, and I can't pay you. I do pro bono work through a foundation. You don't pay me. The foundation does. Judith paused. As for where you'll go, do you have a friend who can take you in temporarily? Yes. Rachel. She said I could stay with her. Good, that's good. She'll probably be called as a witness at some point, so make sure she understands what she's getting into. Supporting you might mean facing pressure from your husband's family. She can handle it. I believe you. Now listen carefully. Between now and Monday, you do not communicate with your husband except through text messages. No phone calls, no in-person meetings. If he shows up at the hospital, you don't see him alone. Keep a nurse in the room. Everything he says to you, you document. Understand? Yes. If his mother comes back, you refuse to see her. She's not your lawyer. She's not your doctor. She has no right to be in that room. Hospital staff will back you up on that. Okay. One more thing. This is going to get ugly. The Voss family has money and connections, and they're going to use both to try to intimidate you into backing down. You need to be ready for that. Can you do this? Can you see it through even when it gets hard? Serena thought about standing outside that gate, about watching Caroline drive past her, about Helen's threats and Damien's hollow apologies. Thought about the baby inside her, the one who deserved better than being raised in a house built on lies. Yes, she said, I can do this. Good. I'll call you Monday morning after I file the motions. In the meantime, you rest, you take care of yourself and that baby, and you don't let them make you feel small. Judith hung up. Serena set the phone down and looked at her hands. They were still shaking, but less now, like something inside her had solidified, turned from water into stone. Rachel arrived 10 minutes later carrying a bag from Target and a look of fierce determination. I brought you real clothes, Rachel said, dumping the bag on the bed, because you're not wearing that hospital gown when they discharge you. Also, I brought snacks because hospital food is garbage. Serena pulled out a soft gray sweatshirt, maternity leggings, basic underwear. You didn't have to do all this. Stop saying that. I keep telling you I want to help. Rachel sat on the edge of the bed. Did you call the lawyer? Yeah, she's filing emergency motions Monday. In the meantime, Damien froze my access to our money. Rachel's expression darkened. Of course he did. Okay, new plan. You're staying with me indefinitely, not just a few days. I'll clear out my office, we'll turn it into a bedroom. It's small, but it has a door and a window, and that's all you need right now. I can't take your office. You can, and you will. I barely use it anyway. Rachel squeezed her hand. We'll figure this out, together. You're not alone in this, Serena. The words cracked something open in Serena's chest. She'd been alone for so long, even when she was married, even when she was surrounded by people. Damien's isolation had been so gradual she'd barely noticed it happening. But now, sitting in this hospital room with Rachel beside her, she realized how much she'd missed having someone in her corner who wasn't there because they had to be, but because they wanted to be. Thank you, Serena whispered. Don't thank me yet. You haven't seen how terrible my pull-out couch is. Despite everything, Serena almost smiled. The door opened again, and Dr. Martinez walked in with a clipboard and an expression that suggested the news wasn't great, but wasn't terrible either. Mrs. Voss, how are you feeling? Tired, angry, confused. All reasonable responses to your situation. Dr. Martinez glanced at Rachel. And you are? Rachel Kim, friend. Good. She should have friends. The doctor turned back to Serena. I wanted to update you on your discharge plan. We're keeping you through the weekend for observation. Your blood pressure is still elevated, and I want to make sure the baby's heartbeat stays stable before we send you home. When will I be discharged? Probably Monday, assuming everything stays stable. Tuesday at the latest. Dr. Martinez paused. I also wanted to talk to you about delivery. Given what happened, given your stress levels, I think we need to prepare for the possibility of inducing labor early or scheduling a C-section. Serena's hand went to her stomach. Is something wrong with the baby? No. But you're at high risk for complications. The hypothermia, the stress, the elevated blood pressure, all of that increases the chances of problems during delivery. I'd rather have a controlled situation where we can monitor everything closely. How early are we talking? I'd like to get you to 37 weeks if possible. You're at 35 weeks now, so ideally 2 more weeks. And if I can't make it 2 weeks, then we deliver whenever we need to. Modern medicine is very good at caring for babies born a few weeks early. Dr. Martinez sat down. I know this is a lot, but I need you to take care of yourself. The stress you're under isn't just emotional. It's physical, and it's affecting your pregnancy. I'm trying. I know you are. But trying isn't enough right now. You need to actively de-stress, which means setting boundaries with your husband and his family. No more confrontations. No more visits that spike your blood pressure. She looked pointedly at Serena. Can you do that? I already told the nurses not to let Damien in. Good. Keep that boundary. And if you feel your stress rising, you call a nurse. We can give you something to help you calm down that's safe for the baby. After Dr. Martinez left, Rachel pulled out her phone. Okay, we're making a list. Things that need to happen before you leave the hospital. Rachel. Nope. Humor me. We're making a list. She opened her notes app. 1. Lawyer stuff, already in progress. 2. Somewhere to live, done. 3. Clothes and essentials, also done. 4. Plan for if Damien shows up at my apartment, which he probably will. Serena hadn't thought about that. What do we do if he comes? We don't answer the door. If he won't leave, we call the cops. Simple. He's not going to just accept this. I know, but that's his problem, not yours. You're allowed to walk away from people who hurt you, even if you're married to them, especially if you're married to them. Serena nodded slowly. What if he tries to take the baby? He can't. Not legally. Not without a custody agreement. And even then, not from the hospital. Rachel's voice was firm. Stop borrowing trouble, Serena. We'll deal with problems as they come. Right now you need to rest. But rest didn't come easy that night. Serena lay in the hospital bed listening to the machines beep and the nurses move through the halls and tried not to think about Damien somewhere across the city, probably planning his next move. Tried not to think about Helen and her threats, about lawyers and court battles and custody arrangements. Tried not to think about the fact that the man she'd loved enough to marry had become someone she didn't recognize. Her phone buzzed around midnight. Text from Damien. I'm not giving up on us. I know you're angry. I know I hurt you, but we can fix this. We have to fix this. For the baby. Serena stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, the baby deserves parents who don't hurt each other. I'm not sure we can be that anymore. His response came fast. We can be anything we choose to be. I'm choosing to fight for you. For us. You should have chosen that before you locked me outside. I know, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. But I can't undo it. I can only move forward. Let me show you I've changed. How? How are you going to show me that? The typing indicator appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. Just please don't shut me out completely. Serena's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Part of her wanted to say something cruel, something that would hurt him the way she was hurting. But the larger part was just tired. Too tired to fight, too tired to care, too tired to figure out whether anything he said mattered anymore. I need space, she typed. Real space. Not you texting me every hour, not your mother threatening me, just space. Okay, I can give you that. Can you? Because so far you've just been pushing harder. Another long pause. Then, you're right, I'm sorry, I'll stop. But Serena, please know that I love you. I've always loved you. I just forgot how to show it. She didn't respond. Just set the phone down and turned her face to the wall and let the tears come silently so the nurses wouldn't hear and come rushing in to check on her again. The baby moved inside her, a rolling kick that felt almost like a question. Like even the child could sense the chaos surrounding them both. I don't know what we're doing either, Serena whispered into the dark. But we'll figure it out, somehow. Sunday passed in a blur of visitors. Rachel came back with more supplies and stayed for hours, helping Serena set up a new email account that wasn't connected to anything Damien had access to, researching tenant rights and custody laws, generally being the kind of friend Serena had forgotten existed. Linda, the social worker, stopped by to check in, looking pleased that Serena had already contacted Judith Parrish. The young nurse, whose name turned out to be Amy, brought Serena ice chips and magazines and chatted about nothing in particular, which was exactly what Serena needed. Damien didn't come, didn't call. Kept his promise about space, which somehow felt worse than his constant presence would have. Like he'd finally heard her, but only because he'd run out of other options. Helen called twice. Serena ignored both attempts. By Monday morning, Serena's blood pressure had come down enough that Dr. Martinez agreed to discharge her Tuesday if things stayed stable. Judith called at 9 a.m. sharp with news. I filed the motions, Judith said without preamble. Emergency hearing is set for Wednesday at 2 p.m. Your husband's been served. Expect him to get a lawyer involved immediately. What happens at the hearing? We argue for temporary spousal support and restoration of your access to marital funds. The judge will also hear my request for a restraining order preventing further financial abuse. If we're lucky, we get a ruling by end of day. And if we're not lucky, then it drags out and you live on your friend's charity while we wait. But judges don't usually look kindly on men who freeze out pregnant wives, so I'm optimistic. Judith paused. Are you still planning to stay with your friend Rachel? Yes? Good. Make sure she knows the Voss family might contact her. They'll try to paint you as unstable, manipulative, whatever they think will work. She needs to be ready to shut that down. She can handle it. I believe you. I'll call you after the hearing Wednesday. In the meantime, you take care of yourself and let me worry about the legal stuff. After Judith hung up, Serena sat in the hospital bed and tried to process the fact that this was really happening. She was really leaving, really fighting back, really choosing herself and her baby over the safety of a marriage that had stopped being safe a long time ago. The baby kicked, and Serena smiled for the first time in days. "We're going to be okay," she said to the swell of her stomach. "I promise. We're going to be okay." Tuesday morning arrived with fresh snow and the kind of quiet that felt more like held breath than peace. Serena was packing the few belongings Rachel had brought her when Dr. Martinez appeared in the doorway with discharge papers and a prescription bottle. "Blood pressure medication," the doctor said, setting the bottle on the bedside table. "Take it twice a day. No skipping doses. I want to see you back here in 1 week for a checkup, and if anything feels wrong before that, bleeding, severe cramping, decreased fetal movement, you come straight to the ER. Understand?" "I understand." Dr. Martinez studied her for a moment. "How are you really doing?" "I'm terrified," Serena said honestly. "But I think I'm doing the right thing." "Good. Being terrified means you're paying attention." The doctor handed over the discharge papers. "You have people helping you. My friend Rachel, and a lawyer. That's more than a lot of women in your situation have. Use them. Don't try to be strong alone." Dr. Martinez paused at the door. "And Serena, what you went through last week, standing outside in the cold, almost losing everything, that wasn't your fault. Don't let anyone convince you it was." After she left, Serena changed into the clothes Rachel had brought. The sweatshirt was soft, the leggings stretched comfortably over her belly, and for the first time in days she felt almost human instead of like a collection of failing parts hooked up to machines. Rachel arrived at 10 a.m. sharp, pulling her ancient Civic into the hospital pickup area with the kind of confidence that suggested she didn't care about the no parking signs. "Your chariot awaits," Rachel said, popping the trunk. "It's not fancy, but it runs." Serena lowered herself into the passenger seat, the baby shifting with the movement. The car smelled like coffee and the vanilla air freshener hanging from the rear view mirror. Nothing like Damien's cars with their leather interiors and new car smell that never seemed to fade. "Thank you," Serena said as Rachel pulled into traffic, "for all of this." "Stop thanking me. It's getting weird." Rachel glanced over. "How are you feeling? For real, not the polite version. Like I'm about to fall off a cliff and I'm not sure if there's anything at the bottom to catch me." "That's fair, but for what it's worth, I'm at the bottom with a very large net and questionable upper body strength." Despite everything, Serena smiled. Rachel's apartment was in Wicker Park, a third-floor walk-up in a building that had seen better decades. The stairs were narrow and steep, and by the time Serena reached the top, she was breathing hard enough that Rachel made her sit on the landing for 5 minutes before going inside. The apartment itself was small, maybe 700 square feet total, but it was warm and bright and filled with the kind of comfortable clutter that came from actually living somewhere instead of just existing in a space. Books stacked on the coffee table, plants on the windowsill, an Afghan thrown over the back of the couch that looked hand-knitted by someone's grandmother. "It's not much," Rachel said, suddenly sounding self-conscious. "But the office, well, former office, is through here." She led Serena down a short hallway to a room barely big enough for the futon that Rachel had obviously just set up. There was a dresser against one wall, a lamp on the floor, a window that looked out onto the fire escape. "I cleared out all my work stuff," Rachel said. "The closet's empty, and I put clean sheets on the futon, though I'm not going to lie to you, it's not the most comfortable thing in the world." Serena looked at the small room that represented her entire life now and felt her throat tighten. "It's perfect." "You're a terrible liar." Rachel set Serena's bag on the dresser. "But I appreciate the effort. Now, house rules. You can eat anything in the kitchen except the leftover Thai food in the blue container because that's my breakfast tomorrow. Bathroom's shared, but I'm basically never home during the day, so you'll have it to yourself most of the time. And if you need anything at all, you call me. I don't care if it's 3 a.m. and you want ice cream. I'll get you ice cream." "I don't deserve you." "Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway." Rachel checked her phone. I have to go into the office for a few hours. Client meeting I can't reschedule. Will you be okay here alone? Serena nodded, though the thought of being alone made her stomach twist. I'll be fine. Lock the door behind me. Don't answer if someone knocks unless you know who it is. And text me if anything feels weird or wrong or if you just need to hear another person's voice. But after Rachel left, Serena stood in the center of the small apartment and tried to figure out what to do with herself. For 3 years, her days had been structured around Damien's schedule, his needs, his preferences. She'd forgotten what it felt like to have empty hours and no one to fill them for. She unpacked her few belongings, took her blood pressure medication, tried to nap, but couldn't turn her brain off. Finally, she settled on the couch with one of Rachel's books and attempted to read. But the words blurred together and she kept checking her phone even though there was no one she wanted to hear from. Around 2 p.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Mrs. Voss? Male voice, professional, unfamiliar. This is Gregory Chen from Chen & Associates. I've been retained by your husband to represent him in your family law matter. Serena's stomach dropped. I have a lawyer. You should talk to her. I will be. But I wanted to reach out to you directly first, as a courtesy. Mr. Voss is very concerned about you and the baby. He'd like to arrange a meeting to discuss how we can resolve this situation amicably. There's nothing to discuss. Mrs. Voss, I understand you're upset. What happened last week was unfortunate, but Mr. Voss is willing to take full responsibility for his mistakes and work toward reconciliation. Surely that's worth a conversation? He locked me outside in sub-zero temperatures while I was 8 months pregnant. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. Gregory Chen's tone shifted slightly, became sharper. Be that as it may, you're still married, and under Illinois law, Mr. Voss has certain rights regarding his child. It would be in everyone's best interest to work this out without involving the courts. My lawyer disagrees. Ms. Parrish is known for being aggressive. She tends to escalate situations unnecessarily. I'm simply suggesting that litigation might not be the best path forward, especially given your financial situation. There it was, the threat wrapped in concern. Don't call me again, Serena said. Talk to my lawyer. She hung up before he could respond. Her hands were shaking. She tried to breathe through it, counting the way the nurse Amy had taught her, but the panic was already crawling up her throat. Damien had hired a lawyer. A real one, the kind who called wives directly to intimidate them into backing down. She called Judith. He had his lawyer call me, Serena said when Judith picked up. Gregory Chen, he wanted to set up a meeting. Of course he did. What did you tell him? To talk to you. Perfect. Don't engage with him again. If he calls back, send him to voicemail. Judith sounded pleased rather than worried. Gregory Chen is expensive. Damien hiring him is actually good news for us. How is that good news? Because it shows he's taking this seriously, which means he's worried, and worried opponents make mistakes. Judith paused. The hearing's tomorrow at 2 p.m. I need you there. Can you make it to the courthouse? Yes, Rachel can drive me. Good. Wear something professional but comfortable. We're not trying to impress anyone, but we want to look like responsible adults. And Serena, don't talk to Damien. Not tonight, not tomorrow morning. If he shows up at your friend's apartment, you call the police. He wouldn't. He hired Gregory Chen. He's playing hardball now. Expect him to do whatever it takes. After they hung up, Serena sat on Rachel's couch and tried not to think about Damien somewhere across the city, strategizing with his expensive lawyer about how to get her to come back. Tried not to think about what tomorrow's hearing would be like, facing him in court, having a judge decide whether she deserved access to her own money. The baby kicked hard enough to make her wince. She pressed her hand to the spot and felt the answering push of a tiny foot. I know, she whispered. This is scary, but we're going to get through it. Her phone buzzed. Text from a number she didn't recognize. This is Caroline. We need to talk. Serena stared at the message like it might bite her. Caroline. The woman who'd been in Damien's car, who'd driven past her through the gate, who'd been warm inside the house while Serena froze outside. Against her better judgment, she typed back, How did you get my number? Damien. He's a mess, Serena. He told me everything. About the gate, the hospital, all of it. I don't care, I know you don't, but I need you to understand something. I didn't know he was married when we started. He told me he was separated, that you two were getting divorced. Serena's vision went red at the edges. That's a lie. I know that now. When he called me from the hospital, when he ended things, he told me the truth, that he'd lied to me, used me, that you were pregnant and he'd almost killed you. A pause. Then another message. I'm not asking you to forgive him. I just wanted you to know I'm not the villain here. He played both of us. You drove past me. Through the gate, you saw me standing there. I didn't know who you were. He never showed me pictures, never talked about you. I thought you were someone else. A delivery person, maybe. I don't know. Another pause. I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I wouldn't have gotten involved if I'd known the truth. Serena wanted to scream at her, to tell her it didn't matter whether she'd known or not, that she'd still been part of the worst night of Serena's life. But the anger felt hollow now, exhausting. Don't contact me again, Serena typed. And if Damien asks you to testify for him in court, tell him no. I already did. I want nothing to do with him or his family. Serena blocked the number and threw her phone onto the couch cushion beside her. The door lock clicked. Rachel walked in carrying takeout bags and a look of determination. I got Chinese food and ice cream and I'm prepared to eat feelings with you until we both feel sick, Rachel announced. Also, I stopped by a thrift store and got you some more maternity clothes because you can't wear the same sweatshirt for the next month. I can't afford... Didn't ask. The total was like $30. I'll survive. Rachel dumped everything on the coffee table. Now talk to me. What happened while I was gone? You have that look. What look? The one where something happened and you're trying to convince yourself it's fine, but it's definitely not fine. And Serena told her about the lawyer's call and Caroline's texts. Rachel's expression grew progressively darker. That manipulative asshole, say, Rachel said when Serena finished. Telling the other woman you were separated? That's not just lying, that's predatory. I know. And his lawyer calling you directly? That's a power play. He's trying to make you feel like you can't win without him. Maybe I can't. Stop that. Rachel pointed a chopstick at her. You survived him leaving you outside to freeze. You survived his psycho mother threatening to take your baby. You can survive a court hearing. What if the judge sides with him? Then we appeal. We keep fighting. We don't give up just because one person in a robe doesn't see things clearly. Rachel scooped lo mein onto a plate and handed it over. Eat. You need calories for tomorrow. They ate in comfortable silence, the kind that came from real friendship rather than obligation. When Rachel turned on a movie, something light and forgettable, Serena felt herself relax for the first time since leaving the hospital. Around 10 p.m., her phone buzzed. Text from Damien. I know you said you needed space, but I have to say this. Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever the judge decides, I want you to know I'm not fighting you to hurt you. I'm fighting because I can't lose you and the baby. You're my family. You're everything. Serena showed the message to Rachel, who made a disgusted sound. He's trying to get in your head before the hearing, Rachel said. Make you feel guilty so you'll go easier on him tomorrow. It's working. Then turn off your phone. Seriously, you don't need this tonight. Serena powered down her phone and went to bed, but sleep came in fits and starts, broken by dreams of courtrooms and locked gates, and a baby she couldn't reach no matter how hard she tried. Wednesday morning arrived too fast. Serena dressed in the nicest clothes Rachel had found at the thrift store, a black maternity dress that was slightly too big and flats that pinched her swollen feet. Rachel had taken the day off work and wore a professional blazer that Serena had never seen before. Moral support, Rachel said when Serena raised an eyebrow, and witness intimidation if Damien's family tries anything. The courthouse was downtown, all marble and security checkpoints, and the particular smell of old buildings and human anxiety. Judith met them in the hallway outside the courtroom, looking sharp in a navy suit and carrying a briefcase that had seen better days. Good, you're early, Judith said. Let's find somewhere to talk. They huddled in a corner while Judith explained what would happen. The hearing would be short, maybe 30 minutes. Each side would present their arguments. The judge would ask questions, then they'd wait for a ruling, which could come immediately or take a few days. What about Damien? Serena asked. Will he be here? Probably. Gregory Chen doesn't usually let clients skip hearings. Judith squeezed Serena's arm. Don't look at him. Don't react to anything he or his lawyer says. You keep your eyes on me or the judge. Understand? Serena nodded, though her heart was already racing. They filed into the courtroom at 1:55 p.m., and there, sitting at the opposite table with Gregory Chen beside him, was Damien. He looked terrible, worse than he had at the hospital, if that was possible. His suit was rumpled, his face drawn, dark circles under his eyes that suggested he'd slept as poorly as Serena had. When he saw her walk in, his whole body jerked like he wanted to stand, to go to her, but Chen's hand on his arm stopped him. Serena kept her eyes forward and sat down beside Judith. The judge entered, a woman in her 50s with gray hair and reading glasses perched on her nose. Judge Patricia Morrison, according to the nameplate on the bench. "We're here for emergency motions in the matter of Voss versus Voss," Judge Morrison said, looking at her notes. "Ms. Parrish, you filed the motions. Let's hear your arguments." Judith stood. "Your Honor, my client is 8 months pregnant and has been financially cut off by her husband without warning or cause. He froze her access to their joint bank accounts and credit cards, leaving her with less than $500 to her name. She has no income, no family support, and significant medical expenses related to her pregnancy. We're asking for immediate restoration of her access to marital funds and temporary spousal support until this matter can be fully litigated." Judge Morrison looked at Gregory Chen. "Mr. Chen?" Chen stood smoothly. "Your Honor, Mr. Voss did restrict access to certain accounts, but only as a protective measure. Mrs. Voss left the marital home without notice and refused to communicate her whereabouts. Mr. Voss was concerned she might drain their accounts in retaliation for a marital dispute." "That's a lie," Serena whispered to Judith. Judith put a hand on her arm, waited. Judge Morrison looked skeptical. "Mr. Chen, your client's wife was hospitalized with hypothermia. She didn't leave. She was locked out. There was a misunderstanding with the gate code, Your Honor. Mr. Voss has admitted it was his fault and deeply regrets. A misunderstanding that nearly killed a pregnant woman." Judge Morrison's tone could have frozen water. "Ms. Parrish, what documentation do you have?" Judith pulled out copies of the hospital records, the bank statements showing the frozen accounts, screenshots of Serena's attempts to access money. She presented each one methodically while Chen tried to interject with objections that Judge Morrison waved off. "Your Honor, if I may," Chen said, "Mr. Voss is willing to provide financial support. We're not opposing that. We simply want assurances that Mrs. Voss won't liquidate assets before custody and property division can be properly addressed." "Then he should have kept her access open and monitored the accounts," Judge Morrison said. "Freezing out a pregnant spouse is not an appropriate protective measure, Mr. Chen. You know that." Chen's jaw tightened. "Your Honor, we'd like to request a continuance to gather additional—" "Denied. I've heard enough." Judge Morrison looked at Serena directly. "Mrs. Voss, do you have somewhere safe to stay?" Serena stood on shaky legs. "Yes, Your Honor. With a friend." "And you're receiving adequate prenatal care?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Good." Judge Morrison turned back to her notes, wrote something. "Here's my ruling. All restrictions on Mrs. Voss's access to marital accounts are to be lifted immediately. Mr. Voss will also provide temporary spousal support of $5,000 per month until a final divorce decree is entered or the parties reconcile. Mrs. Voss will keep receipts for all major expenditures to be reviewed at the final hearing. This order is effective immediately." Chen started to object. "Your Honor, $5,000 a month is excessive. Mr. Chen, your client lives in a mansion and drives a car worth more than most people's annual salary. $5,000 a month for a pregnant wife is not excessive. It's baseline decent." Judge Morrison signed the order with a flourish. "Anything else?" Judith stood. "We'd also like to request that Mr. Voss be ordered to stay away from Mrs. Voss's residence." "Your Honor, that's completely unnecessary," Chen protested. "Mr. Voss has made no threats. He locked her outside in freezing weather," Judith cut in, "and his mother showed up at the hospital to threaten my client with losing custody. We need protection." Judge Morrison looked tired. "Mr. Chen, I'm going to issue a temporary stay-away order. Your client is not to go to Mrs. Voss's current residence or contact her except through attorneys or in writing regarding the child's welfare. Violations will result in contempt charges. Clear?" Damien shot to his feet. "Your Honor, please, I just want to talk to my wife, to apologize, to—" "Mr. Voss, sit down."
Judge Morrison's voice was sharp. You'll have plenty of opportunities to communicate through proper channels. For now, you're going to give your wife space. Damien sat, looking gutted. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. We're adjourned. My clerk will have copies of the order in 15 minutes. The courtroom emptied.
Serena stayed seated, afraid her legs wouldn't hold her if she tried to stand. Rachel's hand found hers and squeezed. You did it, Rachel whispered. You actually did it. Across the aisle, Damien was arguing with Chen in low, urgent tones. Serena couldn't hear the words, but she could see the desperation in Damien's body language, the way he kept glancing over at her like she might disappear if he looked away. Judith returned with the signed order. This goes into effect immediately. If he violates it, you call the police. Don't hesitate. They walked out of the courtroom together. In the hallway, Serena finally allowed herself to breathe fully. It was done. She had money. She had protection. She had a path forward that didn't involve going back to Damien. Mrs. Voss. She turned. Damien was standing 10 feet away, Chen beside him looking disapproving but not stopping him. Please, Damien said. His voice cracked on the word. Just 1 minute. That's all I'm asking.
Judith moved to intercede, but Serena held up a hand. It's okay. 1 minute. Rachel and Judith stepped back but stayed close. Damien moved closer but stopped well before reaching her, like he was afraid of spooking her. I know you hate me, he said quietly. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I need you to hear this. What I did, leaving you outside, the affair, all of it, it wasn't about you. It was never about you not being enough. You were always enough. He stopped, swallowed. I got scared of being a father, of the responsibility, of losing myself in it, and instead of talking to you about that, I pushed you away. I tried to pretend it wasn't happening, and I almost killed you because of my own cowardice. Serena didn't respond, just waited. I've been going to therapy, Damien continued, every day since you were hospitalized. I found someone who specializes in this kind of thing, and I'm starting to understand how badly I hurt you, how much damage I did. His eyes were wet now. I'm not asking you to come back. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking you to believe that I'm trying to change, that I want to be better, for you, for our baby. Words are easy, Damien. Serena's voice was steady, empty of emotion. You've said all of this before in different ways. Actions are what matter. I know, so I'm going to show you, through actions, every day. He took a breath. The house is yours if you want it. I'll move out. I've already told my mother to back off, that she's not to contact you or Rachel or anyone in your life. I'm giving you space like you asked for, and I'm going to keep doing that until you tell me to stop. The judge already ordered you to give me space. I know, but I'm doing it because you asked, not because I was told to. Damien looked at her with something that might have been hope or might have been desperation. Is there any chance? Any possibility that someday you might be able to trust me again? Serena thought about the question, really thought about it. Tried to imagine a future where Damien's words matched his actions, where he proved himself reliable, where she could look at him without seeing the gate and the cold in Caroline's car driving past. I don't know, she said finally. Maybe, but it's going to take a lot more than therapy and promises. I know. I'll do whatever it takes. Then start by leaving me alone unless it's about the baby. No texts about us. No calls begging me to reconsider. Just space. Real space. Damien nodded. Okay. Space. I can do that. He turned to leave, then stopped. Serena, when the baby comes, I want to be there. If you'll let me, not as your husband, as their father. We'll see, Serena said. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't reconciliation, but it was something other than pure hatred, and maybe that was enough for now. The weeks that followed the courthouse passed in a strange rhythm of waiting and healing that didn't feel like either. Serena moved through Rachel's small apartment like a ghost, learning to be solid again, trying to remember what it felt like to make choices that were only hers. The money appeared in her account the day after the hearing, all of it. The joint accounts unlocked, the credit cards reactivated, and the first spousal support payment deposited exactly when Judith said it would be. Damien kept his word about that, at least. He also kept his word about space. No calls, no texts, except for one message 3 days after the hearing that said simply,
Thinking of you and the baby. Hope you're both well. Serena had stared at it for 10 minutes before deciding not to respond. Rachel had been right about the couch being terrible. Serena's back ached constantly, and the baby seemed to have decided that 3 a.m. was the perfect time for gymnastics practice. But the apartment was warm and safe, and every morning Serena woke up without the weight of Damien's expectations pressing down on her felt like a small victory. Dr. Martinez's follow-up appointment came on a Friday. Serena took the bus to Northwestern Memorial, Rachel having offered to drive, but Serena insisting she needed to prove to herself she could do things alone. The doctor checked her blood pressure, measured her belly, listened to the baby's heartbeat with that practiced expression that gave nothing away. "Everything looks stable," Dr. Martinez said finally. "Blood pressure is still elevated, but not dangerously so. Baby's measuring right on track. How are you feeling mentally?" "Tired, confused, angry sometimes, sad others." Serena paused. "But not like I'm drowning anymore." "That's progress." The doctor made notes on her tablet. "Any contact with your husband?" "No, he's giving me space like I asked." "And how does that feel?" "Weird. I keep expecting him to show up, to push, but he hasn't, and I don't know if I'm relieved or disappointed." Dr. Martinez looked at her over her glasses. "You're allowed to have complicated feelings about him. He hurt you badly, but you also loved him. Those things can be true at the same time. I don't know if I love him anymore, or if I'm just grieving who I thought he was." "Maybe both. And maybe that's okay for now." The doctor handed her a pamphlet. "There's a support group for women going through difficult separations during pregnancy. Meets Tuesday nights at a church near here. You don't have to talk if you don't want to, but it might help to be around people who understand." Serena took the pamphlet mostly to be polite, but that Tuesday she found herself standing outside the church basement, listening to voices inside, trying to work up the courage to walk through the door. A woman about her age stepped out for air, saw Serena hovering, and smiled. "First time? That obvious?" "Everyone looks like that their first time. Like they're about to face a firing squad." The woman held out her hand. "I'm Tasha. Been coming here for 6 weeks. It's not as scary as you think." Serena. "You pregnant or just here for the terrible coffee?" Despite herself, Serena smiled. "Pregnant, 8.5 months. Jesus. And dealing with separation stuff on top of that? You're braver than me. I'm only 3 months and I feel like I'm falling apart." Tasha held the door open. "Come on. Melissa's leading tonight. She's good. Doesn't do the toxic positivity thing." The group was small, maybe 8 women ranging from early 20s to late 40s. They sat in a circle on folding chairs while a woman with kind eyes and gray-streaked hair passed around a box of tissues like she knew they'd be needed. "For those who are new," Melissa said, looking at Serena, "we don't do advice here. We don't fix each other. We just listen and share if we want to. Everything said in this room stays in this room, and if you just want to sit and absorb, that's fine too." The stories that came out over the next hour were painfully familiar. Women whose partners had left when the pregnancy test came back positive. Women whose husbands had affairs because pregnancy made them unsexy. Women who'd been controlled, isolated, financially abused, emotionally destroyed by men who'd promised to love them. When it came around to Serena, she almost passed, but then she thought about standing outside that gate, about the cold, about waking up in the hospital, not knowing if her baby would survive. And the words came tumbling out. She told them everything. The affair, the locked gate, the hypothermia, Helen's threats, the court hearing. When she finished, the room was quiet. Then Tasha said, "Did you press charges?" Serena blinked. "For what?" "For leaving you outside. That's endangerment. Reckless endangerment of you and the baby. You could have died." I didn't think about that. The police never said anything." "Because cops don't give a shit about domestic situations unless someone's already dead," another woman said bitterly. "But you should talk to your lawyer. What he did wasn't just cruel, it was criminal." After the meeting, Melissa pulled Serena aside. "You okay? That was a lot to share first time out." "I'm okay. It actually helped, saying it out loud to people who don't know him, who don't have an opinion about what I should do." "Good. That's what we're here for." Melissa hesitated. "Can I give you one piece of unsolicited advice?" "Sure." Whatever you decide about your husband, whether you stay separated, get divorced, or eventually reconcile, make sure it's your choice. Not his, not his family's, not what you think you're supposed to do for the baby. Your choice, because you're the one who has to live with it. Serena carried those words home with her on the bus, turning them over in her mind like stones she was trying to understand the weight of. The next day, she called Judith. Can I press charges against Damien for what happened, for leaving me outside? Judith was quiet for a moment. Technically, yes. It could be argued as reckless endangerment or criminal neglect. But Serena, I need you to think carefully about whether that's the path you want to go down. Criminal charges would make any kind of future co-parenting relationship almost impossible, and they'd turn your divorce into a public spectacle. But he almost killed me. I know. And if you want to pursue it, I'll support you. But I need you to be sure it's about justice, not revenge, because the courts won't see a difference, but you'll have to live with the consequences. Serena thought about it for 3 days. In the end, she decided Judith was right. What she wanted wasn't Damien in jail. What she wanted was for him to truly understand what he'd done and change because of it. Criminal charges wouldn't accomplish that. But she did ask Judith to make sure it was documented in their divorce proceedings. Every detail. The affair, the gate code, the hypothermia, all of it. So if Damien ever tried to paint himself as the victim, there would be a record of the truth. March turned into April. The snow melted, leaving behind the kind of gray slush that made Chicago look exhausted. Serena hit 37 weeks, then 38, the baby getting bigger and her body getting more uncomfortable by the day. Damien sent his one aloud message per week, always brief, always the same sentiment in different words. Thinking of you. Hope you're well. Let me know if you need anything. Serena never responded, but she also never blocked him. Some part of her needed to know he was still there, still trying, even if she didn't know what to do with that information. Rachel had been saintly about the whole thing, never complaining when Serena couldn't sleep and watch TV at 2 a.m., never making her feel like an inconvenience even though she clearly was. But Serena could see the strain starting to show. Rachel was working longer hours to make up for taking time off, coming home exhausted and still trying to be cheerful and supportive.
I should look for my own place, Serena said one night over dinner. Rachel looked up from her noodles. What? No, you're fine here. I'm not fine here. I'm taking over your life. You need your space back. I have plenty of space. Rachel, you're doing laundry in the bathroom sink because I'm using the washer for baby clothes. You're eating takeout every night because I can't handle the smell of cooking. And you haven't had a date in weeks because you don't want to leave me alone. Rachel set down her fork. Okay, fine. It's been an adjustment, but I'm not kicking you out when you're 9 months pregnant. That's not happening. I'm not asking you to kick me out. I'm saying I should start planning for after the baby comes. We can't both fit in this apartment with a newborn. Then we'll figure something out. But right now you focus on getting through the next few weeks. Everything else can wait. But everything else couldn't wait, because 3 days later, at 2:47 in the morning, Serena woke up to her water breaking all over Rachel's futon. Oh no, she whispered into the dark. Oh no, oh no, oh no. She made it halfway to the bathroom before the first real contraction hit, sharp enough to double her over. Rachel found her there 5 minutes later, gripping the doorframe and trying to breathe through the pain. Hospital, Rachel said, already moving. Now, can you walk? I think so. They made it down the stairs, Rachel holding most of Serena's weight, and into the Civic. Rachel drove like she was fleeing a crime scene, blowing through yellow lights and taking corners too fast, while Serena concentrated on not having the baby in the passenger seat. Northwestern Memorial's emergency entrance was bright and chaotic, even at 3 a.m. A nurse took one look at Serena and got her into a wheelchair, rapid-firing questions about due date and birth plan and who to call. My friend Rachel, Serena gasped between contractions. She's right there. She's my person. What about the father? Serena looked at Rachel, who was already pulling out her phone with a question in her eyes. Call him, Serena said. Tell him to come. But Rachel stays with me the whole time. I need her there. Rachel made the call in the hallway while nurses got Serena into a delivery room and hooked up to monitors. Through the wall, Serena could hear Rachel's side of the conversation. She's in labor, Northwestern Memorial maternity ward, and now, I don't know. She just said to call you. Look, just get here, okay? When Rachel came back, her expression was carefully neutral. He's on his way. Said he'd be here in 15 minutes. Okay. Another contraction.
Serena gritted her teeth and counted through it. Rachel, if I'm too out of it to make decisions, you make them. Not him. You. Promise me. I promise. But you're going to be fine. You're going to get through this and meet your baby, and everything's going to be okay. Serena wanted to believe her. Damien arrived in 12 minutes, looking like he'd thrown on the first clothes he'd found and run the whole way. He stopped in the doorway of the delivery room, taking in the monitors and the IV and Serena in the hospital gown, and his face did something complicated. Can I come in? He asked quietly. Serena nodded. He approached the bed slowly, like she was something wild that might bolt. Rachel moved to give him space, but Serena grabbed her hand. She stays, Serena said. Of course. I wouldn't ask her to leave. Damien stood at the foot of the bed, his hands shoved in his pockets. How are you doing? I'm in labor. How do you think I'm doing? Right, stupid question. He looked at the monitor showing the baby's heartbeat. Strong heartbeat. Yeah. They lapsed into awkward silence, broken only by the beeping machines and Serena's breathing as she worked through contractions. A nurse came in to check her progress, declared her at 6 centimeters, and said it would probably be a few more hours. You can wait in the hall if you want, Serena told Damien. Or the waiting room. You don't have to watch this. I want to be here, if that's okay with you. It's your baby too. It's not about the baby. It's about you. Damien's voice was soft. I missed everything before this. Every appointment, every ultrasound, all of it. I don't want to miss this too. Another contraction. Serena breathed through it, squeezing Rachel's hand hard enough to hurt. When it passed, she looked at Damien properly for the first time since he'd arrived. He looked different. Thinner, maybe, or just more tired. But there was something else, something in the way he stood, the way he looked at her. Less entitlement, more humility. You've been going to therapy, Serena said. 3 times a week. How did you know? You're not trying to take over. Old Damien would have already been telling the nurses what to do and calling his mother to announce the baby's coming. Old Damien was an asshole who didn't deserve you. He paused. New Damien is trying to be better, but he's still figuring out how. The hours blurred together. Contractions came harder and closer. The epidural helped with the pain but made everything feel distant and strange. Rachel stayed planted at Serena's side, coaching her through breathing, feeding her ice chips, being exactly what Serena needed without being asked. Damien stayed at the foot of the bed, out of the way but present. He didn't try to touch Serena or offer platitudes, just stood there, bearing witness, his eyes never leaving her face. At 6:23 a.m., the doctor came in and announced it was time to push. Serena looked at Rachel, who nodded encouragement, and then at Damien, who looked terrified and awed in equal measure. You can do this, Rachel said. You're the strongest person I know. Serena pushed. The pain was enormous, overwhelming, all-consuming. She pushed again and again, lost count of how many times. The room narrowed to just the sensation of her body doing impossible work, of Rachel's voice in her ear, of the doctor's calm instructions. And then, at 7:04 a.m., a cry split the air. It's a girl, the doctor announced, lifting a tiny, furious, perfect creature into the light. Serena's vision blurred with tears. She reached out and they placed her daughter on her chest, all warm weight and flailing limbs and lungs that worked beautifully. Hi, baby, Serena whispered. Hi, I'm your mom. The baby, her daughter, quieted at her voice. Open dark eyes that seemed to look right at her. Rachel was crying. The nurses were smiling, and Damien stood frozen at the foot of the bed, his hand pressed to his mouth, tears streaming down his face. She's beautiful, he said, his voice breaking. Serena, she's so beautiful. Do you want to hold her? Serena asked. The words surprised her, but they felt right. Damien looked at her like she'd offered him salvation. Can I? She's your daughter too. The nurse helped transfer the baby to Damien's arms. He held her like she was made of glass, terrified and reverent, his whole body shaking. Hey, little one, he whispered. I'm your dad, and I'm so sorry I almost wasn't here to meet you. The baby grabbed his finger with her tiny hand.
Damien made a sound that wasn't quite a laugh and wasn't quite a sob. I'm going to do better for you, I promise. I'm going to be the dad you deserve.
Serena watched him with their daughter and felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. A crack in the wall she'd built around her heart. They named her Maya Rose Voss. Maya because it meant illusion, and she'd come from a relationship that had been built partly on lies but resulted in something true. Rose because Serena's mother had loved roses, and this baby was the first good thing Serena had created that her mother would have been proud of. The hospital kept them for 2 days. Damien visited every day, never staying too long, always asking permission before touching the baby or sitting down. He'd bring things they needed: diapers, wipes, coffee for Rachel, food that wasn't hospital cafeteria mystery meat. On the second day, while Rachel was in the bathroom and the baby was sleeping, Damien sat beside Serena's bed and said, I talked to my mother. Serena tensed. And? Told her if she ever threatens you again, I'll cut her out of my life entirely. She doesn't get to meet Maya until you're ready. And if you're never ready, that's your choice, and I'll support it. How'd she take that? Poorly. But I don't care. I'm done letting her control things. He looked at the baby sleeping in the bassinet. I'm done letting anyone come between me and my family. We're not your family anymore, not the way we were. I know, but we're something, co-parents at minimum, and I'm going to prove to you I can be trusted with that. Words are easy, Damien. I know. That's why I'm backing them up with actions. He pulled an envelope from his jacket and set it on her bedside table. Deed to the house. It's in your name now, free and clear. You can live there, sell it, burn it down, whatever you want. It's yours. Serena stared at the envelope. Why? Because you're right. Actions matter more than words. And I need to start showing you I mean what I say. He stood. I should go. Let you rest. But Serena, thank you for calling me when you went into labor. Thank you for letting me be here. It meant everything. After he left, Serena opened the envelope. The deed was there exactly as he'd said. The house that had locked her out now belonged to her completely. Rachel came back from the bathroom, took one look at Serena's face, and said, What happened? He gave me the house. Like, the whole house, the mansion? The whole thing, Rachel whistled low. Okay, that's a significant action. Yeah. Does it change anything? Serena looked at Maya sleeping peacefully, her tiny chest rising and falling. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. They brought Maya home to Rachel's apartment on a Tuesday. The car seat installation had taken 45 minutes and required YouTube tutorials, but they'd managed it. Maya screamed the entire ride, her little face red with fury at being strapped into this strange contraption. Is she supposed to cry this much? Rachel asked, sounding panicked. I think so. The book said babies cry when they're uncomfortable. She's been uncomfortable since birth then. This kid has lungs. Getting the car seat up 3 flights of stairs was its own adventure. They ended up taking turns, Rachel carrying Maya while Serena hauled the seat, both of them sweating by the time they reached the apartment. Inside, the space Serena had found cramped, before now felt impossible. Where would the crib go? The changing table? The approximately 8 million things babies apparently needed? We can make it work, Rachel said, reading her mind. People raise babies in smaller spaces than this. Rachel, you've already done so much. I can't keep taking over your life. You're not taking over my life. You're sharing it. There's a difference. Rachel bounced Maya gently. Besides, someone needs to be here to witness you becoming a mom. Might as well be me. The first week was brutal. Maya didn't sleep more than 2 hours at a stretch. Serena's body was healing, but slowly, every movement a reminder of what she'd been through. And the exhaustion was unlike anything she'd experienced, bone deep and persistent. Damien texted every day. How is she? How are you? Do you need anything? Sometimes Serena responded. Sometimes she didn't. He never pushed. On day 8, Serena called him at 3 a.m., too tired to remember why she'd been holding him at arm's length. She won't stop crying, Serena said when he answered. I've fed her, changed her, burped her, everything, and she just keeps crying. Do you want me to come over? Would you? I'm already getting dressed. He arrived 20 minutes later with dark circles under his eyes that matched hers. Serena handed him the screaming baby without a word. Damien took her, held her against his chest, and started walking slow circles around Rachel's living room while humming something low and tuneless. Maya quieted within 5 minutes. "How did you do that?" Serena asked, half amazed, half annoyed. "I don't know. Maybe she just needed a change of scenery." He kept walking, kept humming. "You should sleep. I'll stay with her." "You don't have to eat." "Serena, sleep. I've got her." Serena was too tired to argue. She collapsed on the futon and was out within seconds. When she woke 4 hours later, Damien was asleep on the couch with Maya on his chest, both of them breathing in sync. Rachel was in the kitchen making coffee, trying to be quiet. "He's good with her," Rachel said when she noticed Serena was awake. "Yeah, he is." "Does that change things?" "I don't know. Maybe it should. But I can't forget what he did just because he's good at getting her to sleep." "No one's asking you to forget, but maybe you could consider forgiving. Eventually. When you're ready." Serena watched Damien and Maya, this man who'd almost destroyed her and this baby who'd saved them both, and wondered if forgiveness was even possible. If trust could be rebuilt after being so thoroughly shattered. The answer came slowly, in pieces, over the following weeks. It came when Damien showed up at 2 a.m. for the third time in a week, because Serena called, and he never once complained or made her feel like a burden. It came when Helen tried to visit and Damien turned her away at the door, telling his mother that she wasn't welcome until she apologized to Serena directly. It came when Judith called to say the divorce proceedings were moving forward and did Serena want to continue, and Serena realized she wasn't sure anymore. It came when Maya was 6 weeks old and Serena finally felt brave enough to drive to the mansion, her mansion now, to see if she could stand being in the place that had locked her out. Damien met her at the gate, which was propped open, the code long since changed to one only Serena knew. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said, opening her car door. "Neither was I." He helped her get Maya's car seat out, and they walked up the driveway together. The house looked different in daylight, less imposing. Or maybe Serena was just different now. Inside, everything was exactly as she'd left it, except the master bedroom, which had been completely redone. New furniture, new bedding, new everything. "I couldn't leave it the way it was," Damien said quietly. "Too many ghosts. If you decide to move back in, I wanted you to have a fresh start." "Where would you live if I moved back?" "I've been staying at a hotel downtown, or I'd find an apartment, whatever you're comfortable with." Serena walked through the rooms, Maya asleep in her arms. Remembered the woman she'd been when she'd lived here, small and lost and trying to be what Damien wanted. Realized that woman was gone, replaced by someone who'd survived the worst and come out stronger. "I don't know if I can live here," she said. "Too many bad memories." "I understand. We can sell it, or you can rent it out. Whatever you want." "What do you want, Damien?" He looked at her for a long moment. "I want you to come home. I want us to be a family. I want to prove to you every single day that I'm not the man who locked you out anymore." He paused. "But what I want doesn't matter as much as what you need. So if you need me to walk away completely, I will. If you need me to just be Maya's dad and nothing more, I can do that. Whatever you need, I'll give it to you." Serena felt tears building. "I don't know what I need yet." "That's okay. Take your time figuring it out. I'm not going anywhere." They ended up in the kitchen, Damien making tea while Serena fed Maya, the domesticity of it strange and familiar at once. "I'm scared," Serena said suddenly, "of trusting you again, of believing you've changed and then finding out you haven't." "I'm scared too," Damien admitted, "of failing you again, of being the person I was instead of who I'm trying to become." He set a cup of tea in front of her. "But I'd rather be scared and trying than safe and giving up." "Have you really been going to therapy 3 times a week?" "Yeah, Dr. Patterson. She specializes in infidelity and emotional abuse recovery. For the person who did the hurting, I mean. She doesn't let me make excuses, calls me out on every defense mechanism." He smiled wryly. "It's brutal, but necessary." "What have you learned?" "That I was using Caroline to avoid dealing with my fear of being a father. That I isolated you because I was afraid of you seeing how scared I was. That I locked you out, literally and metaphorically, because I thought if I didn't have to face you, I wouldn't have to face myself." He looked down at his hands. "And that none of that is your fault. None of it. It was all my brokenness, and I made you carry the weight of it. Maya finished eating and let out a satisfied sigh. Serena lifted her to her shoulder for burping. I'm in therapy too, Serena said. The support group led to individual sessions. I'm working through the trauma of that night and the years before it. Good. You should. You deserve support. My therapist asked me if I think our marriage can be saved. What did you tell her? I said I don't know, because I don't. Some days I think yes, if we both keep working at it. Other days I think too much has happened, that we'd just be pretending the cracks aren't there. Damien nodded slowly.
What would it take for you to trust me again? Really trust me? Serena thought about it. Time. Consistency. You doing what you say you're going to do over and over until the pattern proves you've changed. And probably couples therapy, if we're going to try this. I can do that, all of it. And boundaries, real ones. About your mother, about our money, about making decisions together instead of you controlling everything. Yes, whatever you need.
And if I change my mind at any point, if I decide it's not working, you don't fight me. You let me go. That one hurt him. She could see it in the way his whole body tensed. But he said, okay, if that's what you need, I'll let you go. They sat in the kitchen of the house that was now hers, drinking tea while their daughter slept between them. And for the first time in months, Serena felt like maybe, just maybe, there was a path forward she could actually walk. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was possibility. Over the next 3 months, Damien proved himself slowly, steadily, in ways that mattered. He showed up for every pediatrician appointment, learned to change diapers and give bottles, spent hours researching safe sleep practices and baby development milestones. He respected every boundary Serena set, never pushed when she said no, never made her feel guilty for needing space. He also started the process of selling his share of the family business to Helen, cutting financial ties with his mother and the toxic control she represented. It meant less money, less prestige, but it also meant freedom from the expectations that had shaped him into someone he didn't want to be. In July, when Maya was 4 months old, Serena agreed to couples therapy. They met twice a week with Dr. Chen, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who'd spent 30 years helping couples rebuild after betrayal. The sessions were hard. Damien had to sit with Serena's pain, really hear it, without defending himself or minimizing what he'd done. Serena had to learn to communicate her needs clearly instead of hoping Damien would just figure them out. They both had to practice vulnerability in ways that felt terrifying after everything that had happened. But slowly, session by session, something shifted. The distance between them started to close. Not all the way. There were still hard days, still moments when Serena looked at Damien and saw the man who'd left her outside the gate. But there were also moments when she saw the man he was becoming, and those moments were getting more frequent. In August, Serena made a decision. I want to try living together again, she told Damien during a session. Not in the mansion, somewhere new, somewhere that doesn't have bad history attached to it. Damien's face lit up. Really? Really, but with conditions. We sell both properties, the mansion and Rachel's place since I've been covering her rent anyway. We find something new together, and we split everything 50-50. Joint accounts, but also personal accounts. Shared decision-making. Equal partnership. Yes, to all of it. They found a townhouse in Lincoln Park. 3 bedrooms, brick front, small yard for Maya to play in eventually. It wasn't as grand as the mansion, but it was theirs, chosen together, paid for together, filled with furniture they picked out side by side. Moving day was chaos. Rachel helped, of course, directing movers and assembling cribs, and generally being the force of nature she'd always been. When everything was finally in place and Rachel had left, and Maya was asleep in her new nursery, Damien and Serena stood in their new living room and looked at each other. This is really happening, Serena said. Yeah, it is. Damien reached for her hand tentatively. When she didn't pull away, he laced his fingers through hers. I know we're not all the way back yet. I know I still have to prove myself every day. But Serena, I want you to know I'm grateful for this chance, for you not giving up on us even when you had every reason to. I didn't do it for you, Serena said honestly. I did it for me. Because I realized I wanted to see if we could build something better than what we had before, something real. Can we? I think so. As long as we both keep showing up, Keep being honest. Keep choosing each other, even when it's hard.
I can do that.
Damien pulled her closer. Can I kiss you? Serena looked at him, this man who'd broken her and was working every day to make amends. The kiss she'd been avoiding for months because she was afraid it would erase what he'd done, make it easier to forget the lessons she'd learned. But she was also tired of being afraid, tired of protecting herself from someone who was genuinely trying to be better.
Yes, she said.
You can kiss me. The kiss was tentative at first, careful, both of them feeling their way back to something that had been lost. But then Damien's hand came up to cup her face, gentle and sure, and Serena leaned into it, and the kiss deepened into something that felt less like forgiveness and more like a new beginning. When they pulled apart, they were both crying.
I love you, Damien said. I never stopped loving you. I just forgot how to show it.
I love you too, Serena said. But loving you doesn't mean I've forgotten. It means I'm choosing to build something new with the person you're becoming. I can live with that. They stood in their new home, holding each other while their daughter slept upstairs, and felt the weight of the past start to ease. Not disappear. It would always be there, a scar they'd both carry, but it didn't have to define them anymore. 6 months later, on a cold February morning, Damien and Serena stood in Judge Morrison's courtroom again. But this time, instead of asking for protection orders and spousal support, they were filing a motion to dismiss the divorce proceedings. Judge Morrison looked at them over her glasses with an expression that suggested she'd seen this particular story play out in various ways. Are you sure about this, Mrs. Voss? The judge asked. You don't have to reconcile just because you have a child together. I know, Your Honor, but we've been in therapy, both together and separately, and I believe he's changed. More importantly, I've changed. We're not the same people who stood here a year ago. Judge Morrison looked at Damien. Mr. Voss, if you ever pull anything like what you did again, I won't, Your Honor. I swear it. See that you don't, because next time there won't be a reconciliation. There'll be restraining orders and criminal charges. She signed the dismissal. You're very lucky, Mr. Voss. Your wife is more forgiving than most people would be. I know, Your Honor. I remind myself of that every day. Outside the courthouse, Damien took Serena's hand. Thank you. For giving me another chance. For believing I could be better. Don't thank me yet, Serena said. We still have work to do. This isn't a happy ending where everything's magically fixed. This is just the beginning of building something real. I know, and I'm ready for it. He paused. All of it. The hard conversations, the setbacks, the days when you still don't trust me completely. I'm in this for the long haul. Good, because I'm going to hold you to that. They walked to their car, where Rachel was waiting with Maya, and drove home to their townhouse in Lincoln Park. That night, after Maya was asleep and the dishes were done, and the normal chaos of life with a baby had settled, Serena and Damien sat on their couch and talked about the future. Not the fantasy version where everything was perfect, but the real version where they'd both made mistakes and both had to keep working every day to build something better than what they'd had before. It wasn't the love story Serena had imagined when she'd married Damien 4 years ago. That story had been full of grand gestures and expensive gifts and the illusion that money and passion were enough to sustain a marriage. This story was different, smaller, quieter, built on couples therapy appointments and honest conversations and the daily choice to show up for each other even when it would be easier to walk away. It was messy and imperfect and required constant effort, but it was real. And standing outside that gate in the freezing cold, Serena had learned that real was what she needed. Not perfect, not easy, just real. She looked at Damien, who was looking at her with all the love and regret and hope a person could hold, and she smiled. We're going to be okay, she said. Yeah, Damien agreed, pulling her close. We really are. And for the first time since that terrible December night,